I believe that we are going to find out one day in the future, maybe 10, 15 years from now. I hope to be alive when this happens. That government is locked into every and all newsrooms in the United States in one degree or another. And I can tell you that this happens culturally. I've worked in newsrooms, and there's a great belief in bureaucratic agencies in newsrooms. If a bureaucratic agency says a thing, it's taken as sacrosanct and true. It's almost never questioned. I've watched it happen. I've said to news people, why is it that when the government sends a press release, we read it as news? But when a company sends a press release, we say according to a company press release. We don't say that about statements from the government. Well, they're the government. That's one level of control. Another is this, access. People need to have access to newsmakers if they want to do interview-based shows. Many years ago, when Rush Limbaugh was still alive, he talked about why he didn't base his programs on guests. He rarely had guests. And as later in life, he did that a little bit more. But he said if you create your show based upon guests, and you're going to be dependent upon guests for your show to grow. He also didn't want to be beholden to people for access. Sure, you can interview this person, but we'd need you to change your take on this or that. I've experienced the same thing, and we've seen this in media now. Democrats don't go on Republican shows. Republicans don't go on Democrat shows. So you now see this bifurcation. But I believe in the future, 10, 15 years from now, we're going to see that the FBI and the intelligence services and the bureaucracies weren't just asking newsrooms to do things, weren't just telling them to do things, they were doing things for them, such as prepackaged news stories and prepackaged topics and phrases like dis and misinformation. I think we can make this case as to why they'd want to do this. There's two charts we're going to look at side by side that will make this case. There's a chart you could look at if you chose to go read this, and you can go to the Bioptimizers's website and you can look at this. It's the actual study that Matt and Wade did when they were getting ready to release Masszymes for public use. I've been able to use this for a long time. I've just now been able to really tell you about it. They did 243 experiments, and what they were trying to do is find a set of digestive enzymes that would be the most potent on the market, but would also provide great digestive comfort. The 243 experiments got them to the point where they were ready to do now research on the final product. They went to Bosnia, to Birch International University, and they did a side-by-side comparison. Some people just ate food, just like you. Other people ate food, and they took Masszymes, people like me. And we, in the group that took the Masszymes, saw a 1,200% increase in the presence of amino acids in our bodies. Just imagine those charts side by side. Some of us are going to be better at maintaining muscle or building it, even as we're going through calorie-restricted diets or macrobiotic-restricted diets or just eating. I don't diet, I just eat well. Something else. Your plate of fish or chicken or steak isn't as efficient as my plate of chicken, fish, or steak. Even if it's the same exact steak, even if it's the same exact weight, I get more nutrition for my money than you do. So stop letting poor digestion rob you of your full potential and stop paying so much for food that so much goes to waste. Go to bioptimizers.com/Todd. You get 10% off all their products, including Masszymes. It's bioptimizers.com/Todd. Two charts that begin our journey in this. One is a chart of Americans who say they have a share, they have a great deal or a fair amount of trust in mass media. You're looking at a survey of about 1,000 U.S. adults annually, taken from 1972 to 2024. The high point was about 55% of people had a great deal or fair amount of trust in mass media. Now that's dropped down to 31%. Now, at that point, when you're at 31% of the people who trust you and you don't make any changes, that's our first hint. Have you seen the Mockingbird media make any changes to how they report things or to their bias or to story selection? I haven't. Next chart is in frequency in news, media, and academic papers, the use of the phrases mis and disinformation. It was pretty flat. There was a bit of a bump around 1985, 87, but then it utterly skyrocketed beginning in about 2016. Now, of course, you can map this to President Trump, his ascendancy, the 2020 race, but there's something else that happened in about 2010, 2011, 2012. This is when social media began to really take off. Facebook at this point had started to drive more traffic to all websites than search engines, all search engines combined. They overtook Google, they overtook email. It was a massive sea change in people who actually worked in digital media, and I was working it at the time. But something else occurred. The same intelligence services who we know were involved in the launch of Facebook, who we know were who are deeply in love with the data they're getting out of this. I worked in big data at the time. I know the people who had the fire hoses into social media. We licensed their products. I saw inside the machine, okay? They loved that data, but they did not love the fact that as hard as they tried, they could not really contain opinions that bothered them or were counter-narrative. We used to get from campaigns from time to time when I worked at the Republican National Committee requests to have that tweet taken down. What? Have that tweet taken down. I'll never forget this. The stupid, terrible idea of a bus tour for Michael Steele that they created. And I said, this isn't going to work. Please don't do this. Don't ask people to pay for gas. That's not a fundraiser, please. And they did it. And I remember that bus crashed somewhere. It crashed into a car. I think it was in Iowa. And I remember my friend Doug screaming at me, Herman, get that tweet taken down. What's the tweet? They drove the bus into a ditch. They literally drove the bus into a ditch. Like, Doug, I can't have it taken down. That's someone's tweet. I guess Twitter could do that if we could get in touch with them. And of course, if we were Democrats, maybe that would have already happened. As social media took root and the party figured out they can't really stop the mis or disinformation, which is even not mis or disinformation, it spread. So what did they do? They put suspect terms around all information, all of it. You remember this moment during the debate with President Trump and David Muir?
Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Yeah, I don't want to hear Cammie's response. We remember that moment. President Trump is a social media president, and in this case, candidate. Here's what I mean. He saw what you and I saw. He saw groups like Heritage, like the City Journal, report that the FBI had chosen to not include these cities. He saw it, or his advisors saw it. I think he does social media. I think he loves social media. So he consumes information like this and it makes it into his briefings. Hopefully his staff checks it so he's not caught repeating actual disinformation. In this case, of course, he's right. 3 weeks later, the FBI stealth edited their crime reporting. They went back and changed the numbers. This is from Legal Insurrection. Oh, look, 3 weeks before the election, the FBI quietly edited its crime data. The Democrats, media, and the left latched onto the FBI's first report that said violent crime fell in 2022 by 2.1%. They all used the same stat against former President Donald Trump, who'd repeated that crimes have increased. Real Clear Investigations discovered the stealth edit. Violent crime increased in 2022 by 4.5%. Those includes thousands more murders, robberies, and aggravated assaults. If you're paying attention, that's a 6.7% swing in crime going up, because the FBI had said it gotten down 2.1%. It had in fact gone up 4.5%. That's 6.7% difference in favor of President Trump's point. By using the phrase mis and disinformation starting around 2016, they labeled anything President Trump said or anyone who was counter-narrative to be mis or disinformation, because the trust in the single sources they want us to use is plummeting and continuing to plummet as social media continues to rise, hence their utter hatred of Elon Musk, who is nothing like a free speech absolutist. He plays one, and he plays one well. He's 1,000 times better than the previous runners, executives. It was public then, now it's private. And praise God for that. Now, see, they have to contain this, but there's something else they can't contain. In regard to President Trump and the Al Smith dinner, they cannot contain personality because God gave President Trump this personality and God gave Cammie hers. Hers is lacking. I think it's because she doesn't live in the fruit of the Spirit. I don't know to what degree President Trump lives in the fruit of the Spirit. I don't know to what degree he's actually surrendered to the Lord Jesus. I know he's far further along in that than Kamala Harris. This was President Trump joking during the Al Smith dinner, the one that Kamala Harris decided to not attend.
I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz. Well, I'd better wrap up because Mayor Adams told me earlier that I needed to make this one very quick, especially the city has reserved this room for a large group of illegal aliens coming in from Texas. There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me. A major issue in this race is child care, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep him away. That's a nasty one. Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum.
He's next to Trump as he's speaking this.
He looks glum.
Trump touched his back.
But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
Oh, it's good stuff, and they can't contain that. So the reason that they started pushing the phrase dis and misinformation was because there was a point where most people, the majority of Americans, do not trust the Mockingbird media. Well, they knew that was coming. I don't think they understood how powerful social media would be and how hard it would be to jump on the memes and the videos and the opinions and the research before it got out there. I think they knew they couldn't stop it without being obvious, full-on censorship. So they have inoculized people against believing it, immunized people against it by saying it's all mis and disinformation.